Everyone, we are going to discuss this paper 1 of anthropology, and we will not cover the entire paper or both these paper 1 and paper 2 in one go, because it will not be of any value that if I rush through these questions, right, without telling you the detail of each and every question, how you can address, how you can write these questions to fetch the marks, right, that will enable you to get a good rank in this examination. See, the paper that we see, it is, you can say, it's relatively easier but a little bit conceptual paper, right. If you have your foundation well built, then you can address each and every question of these papers, right. But if you memorize few facts, if you just read few, or you can say very selected things, and you don't have the basic knowledge of anthropology, then it will become difficult for you to get decent score in such paper, right. But compared to the last year, it is relatively easy paper, or I would say, if not easy, but for the people who have just memorized few notes, for them it is maybe tough. Yes, one thing is that you need conceptual clarity, you need analytical approach, you need to be able to integrate things, right, in paper 1, paper 2, in biology and socio-cultural, right, that was required in this paper. If we see that from where the paper mainly is, so from biological part we have approximately 150 marks of paper, from socio-cultural part we have approximately 130 marks, and if you combine theories, methods and this socio-cultural institution, society and culture wala part, then we have 175 marks of paper from socio-cultural theories and methods. In theories, we have just two questions. One is of that thick description, and the other is French Beauvoir's historical particularism, right. From methods, we have one question. From linguistic anthropology, we have one question. From paleoanthropology, we have one question, right, that Homo erectus. So, from archaeology, yes, we have 60 marks of paper here, right. So, overall, paper was well balanced, and if you have the foundation ready, then you can address this paper quite easily. Now, many of you might have been shocked by the very first question, right. Unlike the last year's paper, where we have seen that paper, that question, Natufian culture, and it was a bouncer for each and every student, and many of you even cannot understand how to write it, what to write it, and there were so many problems. Many of the students, they have lost hope कि अब तो कुछ होगा नहीं, तो दूसरा पेपर भी उनका खराब हो गया, and finally they cannot get any rank, right. I know at least 5-6 people who cannot write well by just looking at the very first question. The trend continues. Even in this year's paper, they have asked a simple thing, that is animism, but they relate it with deep ecology. See, deep ecology, all of you, I believe, those who are writing mains, so I expect that you have read GS at least very well. You have read environmental ethics at least, right, or not, in many notes, right, these deep ecology concept was mentioned, right. This environmentalism, the extension of that environmental movement, right, that we have to think about the environment. We don't have to focus on just anthropocentric approach, rather we have to consider environment, the various, you can say, components of environment. Other species also have the equal right to live on this planet Earth, not just humans, right. So if you know that thing, you can very well integrate with animism, because all of you know that animism, this concept was given by E.B. Tylor in his book Primitive Culture, where he defined that this is the earliest form of belief, right, and this belief says that animism means every natural object, whether it is biotic or abiotic, have a spirit or a soul, right? So if you think the ecosystem approach, right? So you can say that ecosystem approach or this animism inspired this deep ecology movement, right? Animism, which was a primitive form of belief, it inspired the deep ecology concept, that movement that we have in present, you can say situation, or you can say in this present times, we have this movement of deep ecology, right? So let us take all these questions. We will take first 5 questions today, and slowly and steadily, every day, or maybe we will plan something that will take these questions thoroughly, right? Entire paper will be discussed by me, right? Both paper 1 and paper 2. And one more thing that I wanted to tell each and every one of you, that the paper that is there, almost every question had been discussed by me in my classes, right? Foundation class as well as in the test series. These questions have been discussed. The same questions, the answers have been discussed, and in the class we discuss how you can integrate the socio-cultural part and the biological part and the linguistic part. If you think from the last year's paper also, UPSC is expecting the anthropology aspirants to connect the dots, to connect the things, right? To think in a, you can say, synergized manner. अगर आप देखें last year भी question आया था Natufian culture का, this year also they have asked a similar question, right? That the question is, describe the features of early farming cultures and Neolithic of Near East, right? So basically Natufian भी वहीं से था, that was pre-agricultural. Now they are asking just the same thing, right? They have asked last year that a notion of power, construct of power and conspicuous consumption. This year also they have asked the similar question, how do political organizations of simple societies establish power, authority and legitimacy, right? So questions are more or less same, right? ऐसा कुछ वो नहीं है. Last year also they have asked question from Victor Turner. This year also they have asked, from symbolic anthropology from Clifford Geertz, right? From 2014-15, Clifford Geertz is one of the favorite, thinker for anthropology optional. So I would say that you can do it well. Now, I will take the very first question today. First of all, right? So the first question is animism and deep ecology. Animism and deep ecology. Animism, you can say it's a form of belief, right? Animism is a form of belief, it's a primitive form of belief, which says that all natural objects, whether you can say biotic or you can say living or non-living, all natural objects, whether living or non-living, have soul, or you can say spirit, right? This is this form, right? It is considered as the earliest form of belief, right? And this E.B. Tyler described this in his book Primitive Culture. That he wrote in 1871. Right? E.B. Tyler says that this is the earliest form of belief, and from animism, the more you can say, complex forms of religion like polytheism and monotheism evolved, right? Because he was an evolutionist, so he talks in this manner. So this is what E.B. Tylor says. Now let us understand living objects. You can say we humans and other species have a soul, right? Non-living objects also have a soul, like rivers. Ganga Mata, Yamuna Maya, right? So you can say Ganga and Yamuna. We worship rivers, right? So even Hinduism have some elements of animism, you can say, right? We also, you can say, we worship our ancestor. जो आप श्राद्ध करते हैं, right? पिंडदान, that is basically the ancestor worship, right? पिंडदान और श्राद्ध in Hindu is basically the ancestor worship or animism. Rivers, you can say hills और rocks, पत्थर पूजते हैं, right? आपको अभी डोंगरिया कोंद का केस पता भी होगा, most of you know. Dongariya Kond is a tribe of Odisha who protested against the bauxite plant by Vedanta, right? Because they consider that on the hill, which may be, you can say, exploited by the Vedanta Copper Limited or something, right? On that hilltop, their god lives, right? So that is that, right? Then you can say, and living this sacred groves, right? Sacred grove is that patch of forest land which a community or a group of people consider that it is sacred for them, right? We have to worship this forest grove, because in this forest grove, in this patch of forest, our deity, our god or goddesses live, right? If it is destroyed, then our gods and goddesses will also be destroyed, right? Then you can see this kind of totemism, right? The belief in totemism, it's also a form, you can say, variant, although it is different, but that also we consider, right? That this is something auspicious. Don't get confused between totemism, but I'm just giving you a hint. That is a separate form of belief. It has its own principles and rules, but आपको समझने के लिए I'm just telling you. Okay, so ये सब चीजें. अब दूसरा कॉन्सेप्ट पे आते हैं हम. What is deep ecology? Right? See, deep ecology it's a philosophy, environmental philosophy, or you can say it's a environmental ideology. It's a ideology, or it's a environmental movement, right? This is an environmental movement which was started by Norwegian philosopher Arne Næss, but not only this, that it was started by him. It basically, you can say this is a movement which shifts the focus from anthropocentric approach, right, to the ecosystem centric. See, when we see at anything, we used to look at things from human angle, कि इंसान और humans को क्या फायदा और क्या नुकसान. But it was not good, because we were exploiting the nature. We were exploiting the mines, or you can say minerals from the earth. We were exploiting the forest. We were killing and destroying the habitat of other organisms, right? So that was anthropocentric approach, whether it is for food or for our luxury, for our essential needs. Now the shift is towards the ecosystem. That ecosystem should be the you can say central thing from which we should think, right? Because we are the part of the larger ecosystem, right? So we don't live in isolation on this planet, we live with other species and other components of the ecosystem. Some says that it is from anthropocentric to biosphere centric approach. So I believe you can see the connection that animism, living and non-living. This animism have inspired the concept of deep ecology. Although yes, normally we say that animism is a primitive form of belief, right? Where the simple societies, they believe that our god and goddesses live in this, you can say animistic, and or you can say in this living and non-living things. It have inspired this movement that everything in this ecosystem have the value, right? We are not the only beings with some value, right? We are not the only beings with some value, but everything have a value in the ecosystem. So that shift was, you can say, this have inspired the concept of deep ecology, right? So basically the examiner desire that you should know the application, or you should understand that the concept of GS can be, or you can say simply said कि कुछ भी आपका application mind, analytical mind होना चाहिए आपके पास. If you can think about things, you can naturally link things. Now let me give you the structure of this answer, that how you can write. So first thing is that you can define animism, right? And in definition you can also use that etymology also. I believe this is derived from the Latin word anima, right? That means life force, spirit or soul, right? Then you can define that primitive culture में E.V. Tyler ने क्या बोला है. Then you can define deep ecology, right? So what is deep ecology? Deep ecology is an environmental movement, or you can say it's an environmental philosophy. It says that everything in the ecosystem have value. Everything in the ecosystem have value. We are not the only beings which should be valued, right? We are not the only beings which are valued. Now you can say next heading you will make after this introduction and definition of both these things, that how this animism have inspired the this environmental movement of deep ecology, right? So you can say animism and deep ecology, you can say relationship of both. So first thing is that animism is the underlying philosophy which have inspired, right? यहाँ पे जब animism लिखोगे तो ये सब लिखना पड़ेगा आपको, right? कुछ तो that all you can say everything, all natural objects have soul. So ये सब चीज़ आप बता चुके होगे यहाँ पे. So relationship between animism and deep ecology. So you will say that animism inspired deep ecology, right? Because in the second point you will say that it says that all natural objects have value, right? All natural objects have value, right? All natural objects have soul, you can say, in a sense, right? And it says, this says that all natural objects, especially the living species, have equal value that is that of humans, right? So that you can say it inspired in this way. Then you can write some case studies. So case study, I can give you few, right? So this is the point number 1, this is point number 2, third, case studies. So I will not give you many, you can say advanced, कुछ नहीं देना है, आप simply नियमगिरी जो hills का जो case study है that you can use, right? So case study of Niyamgiri Hills, where Dongariya Kond community right? Dongariya Kond, they protested against the copper mining plant by Vedanta, right? And finally, that plant has to be annulled. So that is very important case study, right? So how their belief, right, led to preservation of that forest ecosystem, that you can say is an important case study. Then we also know about the concept of sacred groves. Right? Many communities have their own, you can say, sacred groves, and they protect the environment, right? One such example you can give, the Monpa community of Arunachal Pradesh, so they protect the sacred grove, right? So that case study you can give. Now finally, in every answer you should give some significance of this, right? What is the practical significance of understanding this relationship, right? Or understanding this, you can say, fourth point, what is the practical relevance of understanding animism and deep ecology, or significance? See, in present times, the environmental degradation is at its peak, right? We have so many conventions and all this convention of parties under UNFCCC, right? Basically, we are trying to conserve the environment. We know that we have crossed the sustainability limit, right? So by linking these concepts, by learning from the primitive societies or the simple societies, their belief systems, we can go for sustainable development. We can conserve the resources, right? So the relevance can be in conservation of resources. And sustainable development. Not only this, see, such things, see, animism is, belief system is something that can be used, to target our conscience. आपको मुझे कोई चीज समझानी है, you want to persuade me, so you can target something that hits a chord in my conscience, right? So belief is such a thing. So if we can relate such things, naturally we anthropologists can be very instrumental in changing the consumption habits of the people, right? So awareness generation, right? Awareness generation about the values, right? By connecting it to our belief system. See, आप देखोगे मार्केटिंग या कोई भी चीज, वो भी कहीं ना कहीं आपके दिमाग के बिलीफ, आपके कंसाइंस के साथ में ही कुछ चलते हैं. आप कोई चीज लाइक करते हो, क्यों लाइक करते हो? Either it is a big brand or a small brand. So we must have to think, right? At what level this persuasion is going on. So here also the same thing can be understood. So this is what this question is. I believe you introduce, define both of them, right? Show the relationship between them by connecting that this is the fundamental philosophy which inspired this recent philosophy of deep ecology. Then you can give case studies, then you can write the relevance, and that is it, that you can say that this answer is done and you will get good score, right? Everything is adjusted in this question. So the second question, let us see what it is. Second question is very simple, marriage regulations and alliance theory. Now, question is direct and straightforward, right? There is nothing much in this question that we can do. Many of you may get confused in this alliance theory. If you say this year's question, right? So the last question, that 8C, is also the same question, right? There also the examiner is talking about the structural analysis of kinship, right? So alliance theory और structural analysis of kinship दोनों ही structuralism से जुड़े हुए हैं. That was given by Levi-Strauss. The concept of structuralism, this theory of structuralism was developed by Levi-Strauss, right? A French anthropologist. So you can say, how will you write this, right? Marriage regulations. So marriage is a culture specific, you can say, institution, and it is regulated by cultural norms, values, right? Traditions and customs. Okay, so cultural traditions, values, norms, customs, right? You can say habits, all of these things, they regulate marriage, right? And marriage regulations, you simply categorize them into three types: proscriptive, prescriptive, and preferential, right? Proscriptive, prescriptive, and preferential. Proscriptive means prohibition. Prescriptive means what has to be done. It is prescribed. If not followed, there will be sanction. Right? The norm says that it should be done. If you do not do that, then there will be some form of sanction against them, right? There will be some action by the society, right? By the community. And preference. It involves the element of choice, right? If you have to choose between the two, so which will be preferred, that is preference. So these are the marriage regulations. In prescription, we talk about incest, taboo, which is near universal, taboo, right? Then we have आवाज आ रही है? टूटा हुआ है. All right? No. Now? So incest taboo, right, which is almost you can say nearly universal taboo found across the societies, right. There are few exceptions in the past, and there are few theories to explain why this is universal taboo. Although this Levi Strauss says that it is universal taboo, but Rodney Needham, his follower, he do not agree with Levi Strauss, right. Prescriptive, endogamy, exogamy, and this hypergamy and hypogamy. See, endogamy. In India, there is caste endogamy. Marriage outside the caste is forbidden. Exogamy. In Hindu society, marriage within the same gotra is forbidden, so there is gotra exogamy. Then we have hypergamy. Right? That says that a girl can only marry in the higher varna. That means a girl cannot marry in the lower varna. Say one girl is born in Brahmin, so she can only marry Brahmin, not the other varnas. If one born in Kshatriya, she can marry either in Kshatriya or in Brahmin, because Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra, this is the varna hierarchy, right? So hypergamy is allowed in Indian settings. Hypogamy, which is marriage of a girl in the lower varna, it is forbidden, right? Preference. Now preference is given to the cousin marriage, right? Right? To levirate marriage of women with the deceased husband's brother, right? Or sororate marriage of a man with his deceased wife's sister, right? Then we can have uncle niece marriage, right? There are many types of these marriages. Cousin marriages are found across the tribal society. Levirate, sororate is found in the caste society as well as in many societies. Uncle niece marriage too is found in, you can say, Gonds, it is called as Doodh Lotawa, right? So all these types of marriages are, you can say, these are the marriage regulations. Then let us come to this alliance theory. what alliance theory says in marriage regulations. See, here in incest, there is a theory, cooperation theory, right, which says that marriage outside the group is to strengthen the network of kins, right? क्योंकि अगर किसी suppose in tribes, they are sustaining on the same resources, right? They are living in the same economies. So one is the direct competitor to the other in terms of resources, right? और अगर एक ही पे compete कर रहे हैं तो एक दूसरे को मार के खत्म हो जाएंगे, right? What is the way out? This cooperation. So this proscription, incest taboo is a proscription, right? And this exogamy is prescribed. So what alliance theory says? Alliance theory tries to describe the basis of social organization, right? It says that kinship based on alliances forms the base of the social organization, right? So Levi-Strauss tries to explain the nature of social organization, or you can say the base of social organization, through this marriage alliances, right? And according to him, the marriage alliances are based on the positive prescriptive rules, right? Positive prescriptive marriage rules, or you can say these regulations, these are the basis, right? These forms the elementary structure of kinship. Right? So what alliance theory says? Alliance theory was given by Levi-Strauss in reaction to the descent theories, right? Descent theories given by the British anthropologist, or you can say British ethnologists like Radcliffe Brown, Meyer Fortis, Evans Pritchard, and all these, right? Jack Goody, right? In reaction to that, alliance theory came, and it was given by Levi-Strauss. Levi-Strauss says that not the descent, rather alliances is the, you can say, central fulcrum of the social organization. Alliances based, you can say kinship based on alliances is the central thing for the social organization. That was his theory, right? So he explains this alliance theory. He says that these positive prescriptive marriage rules are the, yes, he described society as a total system of solitary kinship groups linked to one another by marriage and sharing all encompassing worldview. That was his argument, right? So he says that alliances which are based on positive prescriptive marriage rules forms the kinship, and that is the basis of social organization. So how will you write this? Right? He connected this in his book, this elementary forms of kinship. Although he wrote this book in French, right? This book he wrote in 1949, right? But English version came into 1960 or 69 or something, right? Now, how will you write this question? That becomes a challenge, because it is a 10 marker, and even I cannot elaborate on the alliance theory, right? I will elaborate on alliance theory a little bit after I will tell you this, right? This question is done. So first thing is, in introduction, you will talk about that marriage is a culture specific phenomena. Now don't write a definition of marriage here, right? The reason being, if you are lacking on content, then do write, because कुछ तो लिख के आओगे ना. But otherwise you have to explain this, you have to explain this. So 10 मार्कर में इससे ज़्यादा नहीं लिख पाओगे. पॉसिबल नहीं है कि आप सेलिगमैन की या फिर किसी की भी एक डेफिनेशन लिखो, वो अपने आप में इतना पेज खा जाएगी आपका, राइट? एटलीस्ट हाफ ऑफ द पेज इज गॉन just to write a definition. So instead of that, writing a definition, start with like marriage is a culture specific institution and every culture has its own rules, or you can say norms, values, customs that regulate marriage. On the basis of you can say cross cultural analysis, there are mainly 3 types of marriage regulations that is given below, right? In that way you can write. So then you will write what are the various types of marriage regulations. Some examples, make that graphic, some examples will be sufficient. Then directly come on alliance theory, right? So first part is done, then come to alliance theory. Right? Alliance theory was given by Levi-Strauss, right? And this theory came in reaction to descent theory. Of kinship, right? It came in reaction to the descent theory of kinship. Now, this was given in his book, this elementary forms of kinship, that was written in 1949, right? What it says? It says that marriage alliances are important for the kinship, right? They are, you can say, kinship is mainly based on the alliances, marriage, right? So he gave that marriage alliance is more important than the descent, right? He did not rejected the descent part altogether, rather he says that both are important, but alliances are more important in his eyes, right? The alliances basically, they can say it builds a network of kins, right? And that network of kins, that cooperation is the basis of social organization, that he says. Now, alliance theory came in reaction to that. It is basically inspired by this idealism, right? Philosophical idealism and symbolism, and you can say this, yes, philosophical idealism was the main inspiration, right? He do not link the theory to this material objects, his approach to the material objects. Then one thing that he says that, yes, after writing this, you connect both of these, marriage regulations and alliance theory, right? So how both of them are connected? So in alliance theory, he says that there are many types of rules that you can say determine the alliances, proscriptive and prescriptive. Proscriptive means incest taboo, and prescriptive. He says that prescriptive rules are more important than the proscriptive rules. मतलब prescribe करना ज़्यादा important है, and in that too he says positive prescriptive rules, right? You can say, so the relation between the marriage regulation and alliance. दोनों को कनेक्ट करके दिखाना है. Right? So what you have described that prescriptive rules, right? So positive prescriptive rules किससे शादी करनी है, right? According to him, positive prescriptive rules, it regulates the reciprocal exchange of women. It regulates the बिल्कुल नहीं आ रही है, अभी भी है, अभी भी मिस हो रही है. So positive prescriptive rules, it regulates the reciprocal exchange of women, right? And this reciprocal exchange of women basically forms the elementary structure of kinship. That was the argument given by him, right? So marriage regulation and alliance theory, that is how both of them, you can say, are connected. In alliance theory, he says the exchange of women, right? The marriage alliances form the basis of kinship. So that is how he linked, right? If you want, you can explain a little bit on this elementary form of kinship, how marriage makes the elementary form of kinship. So you can write about that direct restricted exchange or generalized exchange that I believe all of you know, right? So elementary structures can be of two types. One formed by direct exchange, other formed by indirect exchange. Right? Direct exchange, according to him, this is very limited, very rare. Right? And in indirect exchange also, he talks about the marriage with mother's brother's daughter. Right? The mother's brother's daughter से शादी करना एक तरह से एक symmetrical alliance बनाएगा, right? That was his major argument. Not with father's sister's daughter, right? He would mainly emphasize on this mother's brother's daughter, right? We have discussed about this in very detail about the kinship theory and all, one by one, point by point. हर एक चीज को define किया हुआ है class में, right? It becomes difficult for me to consolidate everything about Levi-Strauss without telling you about his binary hypothesis and all these things, right? But I'm trying to say, and I consider that the listeners have some idea about structuralism, right? Who says that Levi-Strauss says that whatever you see, the social reality outside, is the product, or you can say it's a manifestation of the deep underlying structures of human brain, right, which is patterned in binary, right? So this is the, you can say, this is how both are related, right? Now this alliance theory, which was given by Levi-Strauss, it was criticized too by his own, you can say, followers like Rodney Needham and Louis Dumont. Louis Dumont and Rodney Needham both are the followers of Levi-Strauss, right? So to explain marriage regulations just by alliance theory is not sufficient, right? See, alliance theory says one thing that is true. It says on one hand that it says that incest is tabooed, right? That means the marriage between the close relatives, right? But then he says that marriage based on positive prescriptive rules, and most often he's talking about the cousin marriage. Needham take on that thing also, right? He rejected the hypothesis in one sense that, when he says that universality of incest taboo because of this cooperation and all, he rejected that because this marriage with the mother's brother's daughter, that is also some sort of you can say close relative, right? And that is why Rodney Needham made a very strong argument that there is nothing, there is nothing called as incest taboo, right? Moreover, Needham also criticized this alliance theory of Strauss, that he did not make clear-cut distinction what he calls prescription rule or what he call preference rule. So उस पे भी एक criticism आता है, right? Next question, let us see French Boas. Okay, so next question is historical particularism and French Boas, right? So see, this historical particularism, this is a school of thought right? Historical particularism is a school of thought which is associated with French Boas, right? French Boas basically he never called himself that he gave this theory or this school of historical particularism, although this term was coined by Marvin Harris, right? Marvin Harris says that this school belonged to French Boas. See, French Boas never gave any theory. French Boas was, you can say, he was a German who settled in America, right? And he connected, you can say, he was influenced by the diffusionists, right? And he was basically proponent of diffusionism, right? So French Boas, although he never says that he is associated with any school, right? And that is why historical particularism also, you can say, this school, you can say it's a brainchild of Boas, but he never says that it is mine, right? Because from where we deduce it? From his writings, right? So he was writing against the evolutionists. He rejected what evolutionists says. Classical evolutionists like Tyler, right? Morgan, right? And other like German scholars like Bastian, Adolf Bastian, right? And Bachofen, all these scholars. Why he criticized them? He criticized mainly that these people are ethnocentric. These people are ethnocentric, right? It was criticized that they lack data. Right? They indulge in conjecture, right? And third thing, Boas says, why only evolution? Why not can't we learn by imitating each other, right? So third thing is that they rejected or they ignored other processes of cultural change. Other processes of cultural change. So that is why Boas says that this school, evolutionism, is not correct, right? It is not valid. The method that was used by evolutionists, that is called as comparative method, right? Even this method, right? Suppose आपको कोई theory देनी है, right? How will you give theory? Theories are based on the cross-cultural generalizations, you can say, right? Theory is a cross-cultural generalization कि एक चीज़ यहाँ पे भी पाई जाती है, दूसरी जगह पे भी पाई जाती है, तीसरी जगह भी पाई जाती है, तो we can say that this is everywhere. That is a theory. This is a model. You can say on the basis of, we can say it's a universal thing, right? Against this comparative method also, French Boas have written an article, The Limitations of Comparative Method in Anthropology, right? Basically, that was also against the method, theoretical method developed by evolutionists. Now, what does Boas says then, right? If we reject everything, he says, moreover, he also says that basically we should not spend our time and energy in building theories which are based on insufficient data. Rather, our focus or the focus of anthropologists, the job of anthropologists is to collect as much data as he can. जितना डेटा कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं उतना डेटा कलेक्ट करना है, and collection of data about all aspects of the culture. Job is to collect data about all aspects of the culture, right? And if we can collect data about all aspects of the culture, then according to Boas, the theories will spontaneously emerge out of that data. Right? Anthropologists should not spend time on building theories. They should not waste their energies on that, right? Rather, they should focus on collecting data about each and every detail of every aspect of culture, and theories will spontaneously emerge out of that data, right? That was his argument. He says that every culture is product of its own history, right? Every culture is developed because of its own historical, geographical and ecological circumstances. So each culture is unique. Each culture has its own unique history. Each cultural trait has a unique history, and if we try to understand that culture, then we have to reconstruct the history of each cultural trait, right? And if we can understand if we can reconstruct the history, then we can know from where that trait have emerged, right? How it have migrated, right? So everything we can understand. From this concept of, you can say, cultural particularism or historical particularism, emerged other concept of cultural relativism too, right? Because he says that each culture is product of its own history, each culture is a product of its own circumstances, and each product or each cultural trait has to be studied in that manner, right? So in that way you can talk about this, what historical particularism is. What is the significance of it? It led to development of the concept of this cultural relativism. It led to the development, you can say, holistic data collection about the cultural traits. This approach inspired Alfred Kroeber, and he also talked about this historical particularism. It inspired Clark Whistler, right? It inspired other American scholars, right? It inspired the philosophy of cultural relativism, which becomes the hallmark of anthropology, right? You can say it emphasized too much on participant observation, collection of data through the native language, right? So that thing was there, and then it was criticized as being anti-theoretical, right? Clark Whistler, his own student, criticized Boas for his incessant data collection and too much emphasis on inductive purity, right? According to him, according to Clark Whistler, if the aim of anthropologist is not theory formulation, then what is the use of accumulating so much data? क्यों करें हम collect इतना सारा data अगर theory बनानी ही नहीं है? उसके खुद के student ने ये बात बोली, right? So that is one you can say criticism of this theory, right? So 3 questions we have discussed. Some problem is there with the mic, so we will take other questions in the next session, right? And we will cover entire paper of anthropology, this 2021, right, through these sessions. So be in touch. If you want any form of guidance, please write back to us. We will be there to help you through all our resources and means, right? And keep on studying irrespective of whatever situation you are in, right? If you keep your temperament positive, if you stay in the right spirit, positive spirit, you can achieve what you desire, right? Never ever feel low. Lows will come, but don't lose your spirit, right? Stay energetic, stay activated, stay with the positive people, and whatever you want, you can definitely achieve, right? It is you can say, the success and failure is just the products of your right attitude, right? You can build the aptitude, right? But attitude is that, you can say, that can change your result, that can change your destiny, right? So thank you, all the best.